Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. This is the first of a new series of podcasts that I'm doing, joined by Alessandro. And in this series, we're going to be diving into some of the psychology around marketing and what's going on behind the scenes. So, before we get stuck into what we're going to be talking about this week, for those of you who might be new to the podcast, my name is Simon Batchelor. I'm a marketing consultant and I have been running a digital marketing agency for 21 years now. And I also wrote a book a couple of years ago called Reframing Marketing, all about how to do ethical and effective marketing. So, Alessandro, do you want to introduce yourself for us?
Thank you, Simon. Yes, so my name is Alessandro and I'm based in Brighton as well. The majority of the times help like professionals, like accountant, consultants, coaches, and solicitors, and also tech companies to build the confidence to know who is their ideal client, what language they speak, and why they should choose you as a professional or tech companies. So this most of the time give like you not just the confidence, but increase your revenue, reduce the marketing cost, and become the go-to expert.
That's great. So today, Alessandro, we're going to start off with a really interesting and quite specific topic, which is how do I align my product with customers' wants? So I think to start us off, do you want to explain to the listeners what is the difference between needs and wants?
Sure. Let's take a very easy example that everyone is familiar with. If I feel really, really hungry, I have two options. One, go to a supermarket to buy maybe a sandwich, or go to a restaurant. By the end of the day, I satisfy my appetite, but I need to eat something which is more a need. For example, if I go to a supermarket to buy a sandwich, I satisfy my need to eat something. But if I decide to go to a restaurant, it's something that is more an emotional experience. So I eat something. Now I feel good enough to keep going with my day. But I decided to be influenced by maybe something which is external. So I need is something internal. I'm angry. I need to find a solution, buy maybe a sandwich in a supermarket. But if I'm hungry and I want to have a very good experience, I might choose to want to go to a restaurant. So I want to go something which is just beyond feel hungry or feel satiate. So the difference between the two is need is internal, want is something influenced by the external, maybe like the environment of a restaurant.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. And I think in the context of marketing, it is often the case that the business or the expert, the coach or consultant, is really familiar with what those internal needs of the client are. So they often have lots of experience, either that they have been through themselves. So maybe they have like lived experience of the situation, or maybe they've just been working with that kind of client for a long time. So that person often has a really deep knowledge of the internal needs that their client has. The contrast to that is that quite often, especially in coaching and consulting, the client doesn't yet understand or isn't able to clearly articulate the needs that they have. They're very much focused on the wants. So when we think about that kind of situation, how do you see the difference between the needs and the wants from that client's perspective?
Yeah, let me share you like a very recent experience. Because as you said, if when you are an expert, you really know like the needs and the wants, because maybe you had a problem in the past, you create a solution and now you monetize on your solution by providing what the person needs rather than what they want. A classical example, because my area of expertise is about like marketing communication. A lot of people ask me, but do I need to have maybe a headshot taken by a professional like a photographer? I say yes, maybe that is something that we need to look at the second stage, because it's what you want or what the majority of people do, to have everything professional. But what you actually need is to be consistent with a message on LinkedIn, for example. Because if you have like the best headshots, but you're not consistent or you don't write anything on LinkedIn or any like social media, people don't really know who you are and what is the value. So what I usually do is to listen a lot to what people verbalize, and the most of the times is what they want. And this is, as a previous example, is what other friends or colleagues did in the past. So they say, let me do exactly the same. So the
Mm.
strategy is to listen a lot and understand what they want, and then is not say no, this is what you actually need, but is to use the same language that they use in terms of what they want, and drive them step by step, or nudge them to what they actually need. So my strategy is to not neglect what they are saying, is just find a way to explain them. It's like maybe a transformation, or like a journey where this is what you want, but is what you need is exactly this one. Because if you want to get result, you need something that works for you, but maybe different from another person. So what you want is influenced by other people, but I need to explain you what is the need in a very gentle, polite way, because we don't want to say you are wrong to the other person, but we want to help them to get results.
Yes. And I think that is one of the key factors for creating a product that people actually want to buy.
Yes.
Because quite often, as the person creating the product, the expert, we are focused on delivering what that person needs. Because as we've said before, we know what that person needs. Whereas the person who is looking to buy that product, either to solve their problem or to get what they are looking for, isn't necessarily looking for what they need, they're looking for what they want. So when we think about how to align your product with what the client wants, the key, weirdly, is not to focus so much on what they need. The key is to focus on what they want.
Yes.
So it's all about saying to that person, I am able to give you what you want. And it might be that actually at that early stage in the discussion, it's not yet the right time to talk about what they need at all. Sometimes it's best to actually keep the need back.
Yes.
And then once you start working with them, and once they've started the process, once their mind is in the process of doing the work and going through your process, that's when you can say, what we really need here is this. And then you can start to get into that work. And the client isn't going to feel suddenly hoodwinked or
Yes.
manipulated in any way. They're just going to be thinking, well, actually, this is great because what I've got is what I needed. And I didn't even know I needed that, but I'm so happy that you've been able to give me what I need.
Maybe to transition, now that you were describing your experience, to transition from a want to a need. So the want is the first stage and the need
Mm.
is the second, is to highlight maybe the pain points that this person is experiencing, helping them to move from a stage that they are unaware that they have a problem to be aware that they have the problem. So most of the time, if we highlight step by step, these are the pain points and these are maybe the gains, what you want to achieve in the future, is a very good vehicle to move from a want, which is the first stage of our conversation, to a need, is what you actually need. So when we create this emotional appeal, is where help the other person to realize that what they wanted is not what they need. It's not just telling them, but also making them experience the actual problem and the actual solution that, as an expert, we can suggest them.
And I think one of the challenges for people, especially people who might be listening to this and just suddenly realizing that they might have the focus the wrong way, is okay, well, I'm focused on the needs. How do I find out about the customer wants? And this is something that I think is quite interesting because it does involve listening in a different way to what the
Mm,
client is telling you. And quite often, the clients that you have or the clients you've already worked with are telling you loud and clear what they want. And it's just a case of listening sometimes. So one thing I sometimes suggest to people who are not familiar or not yet aware of all of the wants that their clients have is to go back into their email inbox and find some clients that you work with and find the first email that they sent you and look at what was the question they were asking you. What was the thing where they said, Alessandro, I'd like some help with dot dot dot. And what are they expressing there? Because that is often them telling you loud and clear, this is what I want. So do you have any other tips on
yes.
how people can find out what these clients' wants are?
Thank you for sharing the email, because I never thought about that. So I need to implement in my strategy as well. My biggest suggestion is to use social media. A lot of times we say
Mm,
you need to conduct maybe a survey. A survey gives you a little bit of like the answer what they actually want, but it's something that is forced. So it's not very, very natural. Instead, if we look at an observation, maybe on social media, let's take like a LinkedIn. A lot of people like regurgitate everything that they want on a social media in terms of maybe a post or also comments. What I usually do and suggest to my clients is to first of all identify who is your ideal client. And when we are going to look at what language they speak, look at the comments, look at the frustration, like all the emotional language that they use. So by listening, and most of the time listening is not just listening with our ears, but also reading and listen what they say behind some sentences on social media. Because on social media there is no control over the emotions. They say everything that they think without inhibition. So they are very, very genuine with their thought and their emotions. So my suggestion is when you have identified who is the ideal client, go online on LinkedIn and look at their profile, their comments, their social media post, or their website, because their website tells a lot about you, about your personality trait, the one that you want to be seen by others. So my suggestion is also leverage the social media. There are a lot of negative things about social media, but the most important thing and positive is to listen what our audience says online without any kind of filter. Because with a survey, there is a little bit of a filter. With social media, instead, is very, very useful.
I think that's a great tip. So I think for me, it's a case of taking a step back from where you are. If you feel that your product isn't quite landing, or maybe people aren't responding to your product offer in the way that you thought, it's a case of maybe just taking a step back and looking at, okay, so what am I saying in my product offer? Am I just talking about the needs, the real deep issues, the real deep things that people will get when they have worked with me or they've worked with my product? Or am I actually listening to what my clients are telling me loud and clear? And am I talking about what they want? Am I giving them what they're looking for at the point that they are making the decision to buy? So, have you got any closing thoughts for us, Alessandro?
Probably by looking at what we're discussing these 15 minutes is active listening and like customer interactions is the most important thing, because even as professional expert we might have an understanding of our audience, but sometimes we understand that it's not 100% accurate. So active listening, listen more, ask questions to potential client or also existing clients, allowed us to refine our message, refine our product or service. So active listening and have a lot of interactions with your target audience.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, thanks everybody for listening and watching. If you've got any questions or comments, do let us know in the comments below. And if you would like to ask us a question, you can find both me and Alessandro on LinkedIn, and our LinkedIn profiles will be in the show notes or the description, so you can find us there. So thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.